And what I'm doing is aiming for the lumps. I want this to be as lump-free as possible. But one of the things I had to think about right away is the fact that this has to overlap. So, is it going to overlap like that, or is this going to overlap like this? Considering that the wheel direction is this. So this is number 2, this is number 1, and number 1 is what we're going to do, because this then just stretches it over, right? I'm not catching it and actually pulling it up, theoretically. So here we go. Now I'm going to just mash that on there. No water, no slip. Just wet clay. I'm mashing it together. Oh, mush, mush, mush. And this is why the extruded coil maybe is not the huge advantage that you think it is, because you have to do that with an extruded coil anyway. And then what? Then you have to get everything else to be the same thickness. In other words, you need to do this regardless. All right, so now I'm going to thin this thing out. I'm just stretching it, feeling for the lumps, feeling for the thickness, actually. Some places are a little thinner than others. That's critical. You need to get it as even as you can get it, because by the time I get it on there, what? Then I have less of an uneven wall if it's evenly thick now. Okay, let's say we're there. Now, a little bit of scoring and a little bit of slip. Oh, where's my... You don't own stuff, it owns you. There it is. So, score, score, score. And you want this to be a rounded surface, not a flat surface, or somewhat rounded, right? If it's flat, what are you doing? You're running the potential of trapping clay, trapping air. And here, same thing. Texture, a little more interface. And then just a bit of water, not a bunch of slip. Just a bit of water.
Why not?
Because the water will help it stick. A bunch of slip and it'll just slide around. All right, you want to adhere. And there we go. Oh, glorious day. So get it onto the surface that you've scored. Try to roughly center it. And now the critical thing is not to trap air as you're pushing down on this. And you definitely have to get it to adhere. So here we go. I'm using my thumbs at the top and mushing it down in such a way that it is sticking to the slab. And once we've done that, we get to start throwing. Notice there's a nice clean plane right there. You never want to interfere with that. You never want to go down below that. Because I'm going to center this now. I'm going to center above that surface. Once you put a hole or a dip into that, it's really difficult. It's time consuming to fill it. You can't do it by throwing, right? You have to come back and roll out a coil, lay it in there, and try to fill that in, which is tedious. So stay ahead of it, stay above it, and then at some point you can just trim off the excess. Okay, we're in business. So, think lobster, crab's claw, and I'm just holding this clay, and I'm centering it. And you have to hold it very, very rigidly. And before you know it, it is behaving. And the fact that you've got so much clay, you actually have some clay to mess with. You have some room to fool with this. Okay, so there. So the better job you can do right here, this interior circumference, the better you're going to do with this, yes? All right, that's it. Got it? Notice I never really attach this thing to the back, and that's the source of this whole technique. When you have something this wide and you have to run a wire underneath there, it's really difficult. And sometimes the wire will break, you hurt your hand, you lose a bunch of clay. Because whenever you run a wire underneath there, what? There's a shim of clay that you always leave. All right? So this will dry off of here because it's not really attached. The only place it's attached is right about there where I put pressure on the rim. So pressure on the rim, and then inside, outside, and you've got this. And now all I do is pull it up into a wall, shape it, and I'm there. So any questions about this?